Hello and welcome to Football League World TV. We've got the EFL Transfer Zone show this afternoon. The first EFL Transfer Zone we've done on Football League World TV. We've got plenty more of these to come as we approach the January transfer window. We're basically going to be discussing some of the main transfer news and gossip that's surrounding the EFL and discuss and debate them in detail. I'm joined by Marcus Ali and Adam Jones, my two colleagues on Football League. On Marcus, how are we this afternoon?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Really like the look of the list of exciting talents that I think we're gonna get into in today's show. So yeah, full of excitement ahead of as we edge it further closer to the turn of the year and of course the window.
Yeah, plenty to get stuck into this afternoon. And Adam, how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to be on this show because it's my favourite time, really, as a football fan, the transfer windows, and this kind of favourite time as well of being a football writer. So yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Brilliant stuff. If you are watching this EFL Transfer Zone on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, we love to hear your thoughts. So send them in on the comments. If you're on YouTube, send it in the live chat. We'd love to get your thoughts and we'll get them up on the screen and debate them. But let's get straight into it. So the first man we're going to talk about this afternoon is Fulham's Fabio Carvalho. The 19-year-old has been a real star for the Cottagers this season. A really, really exciting prospect in the Championship. He's attracting interest from an array of elite clubs around Europe. Chelsea and Liverpool, the two latest English clubs to be linked with a move for Carvalho, and Real Madrid as well are hot on the heels of the player. He has recently rejected a new contract at Craven Cottage, so it does look quite likely that he could depart Fulham in January potentially, as we do approach it now. Marcus, let's come to you first. He scored 3 goals in 9 games for Fulham this season. We've seen flashes of real quality from Carvalho, haven't we? Are you a little bit surprised at this kind of interest, or not at all?
It is interesting. I think the nature of his contract situation probably has a lot to do with it. Those big clubs thinking that they can take on a player for a cut price than what they would usually be paying if he had, say, 3-4 years left on his contracts, and then develop him in the way that they would prefer. I think it's quite a small sample size, just the 9 outings, to sort of judge where his true potential is, where he's even at right now at 19. Obviously, he's got plenty of time to develop, of course. I'm a little bit concerned because Liverpool, Chelsea and Real Madrid all play a 4-3-3 system at the moment, with Carvalho mainly being played as a number 10. I'm not convinced that he'd really have any first team action if he was to go in January. I think he'd probably be put back into the loan system, go elsewhere to try and develop. Whether the bigger clubs can do that better than Fulham can, I'm not so sure, but we'll have to wait and see. I think onto the contract situation, if a club was going to be able to convince a younger player to stay on, it would be Fulham in the Football League, with the financial backing that they've got and the parachute payments and money that they've got. If they were to try and convince him to stay on, I don't think they'd have a problem with that. So I think it is probably an inevitability, and the fact that there's been so much agent talk and maybe moving on to changing of agent, it does suggest that it's looking bleak in terms of wanting him to stay at the Cottages for much longer past January.
Yeah, I mean, it is being reported that he is going to change agents in January, so that might hand Fulham a little bit of an advantage in that any business might be done in the summer potentially. Adam, let's come to you then. He's been, like you say, he's played 9 games, but he has been injured. He's had a few issues, so he hasn't been playing consistently week in, week out. If Fulham were to lose Carvalho in January, would you regard that as a major blow to Fulham and their promotion push?
I'm not sure if it's a massive blow to their promotion push. I know they've got the likes of Mitrovic and Muniz up front, who are going to be really reliable kind of throughout the season. I knew that Muniz was actually pretty good at Blackburn as well. I know that's not his position, but still they're firing. For me as well, the trio of Cabano and Reed and those players, in behind Mitrovic, I think will be really important. I think Niskins Cabano, is an underrated player. He was fantastic in midweek against Blackburn in the 7-0. Reed as well, who isn't the most prolific at times, but has created some really good opportunities. I think he's quite good as well. And what else can you really say about Harry Wilson? I know that he created 19 goal scoring contributions for Cardiff City last season, and I think the fact that they signed him in the summer, I think, was an absolute game changer for Fulham. I know they already had a strong squad, but bringing him in as kind of fresh blood, I think that that might in the end be the difference between a playoff finish and an automatic promotion finish. So I wouldn't regard that as a massive blow. But I would perhaps maybe get in like maybe a loan replacement or something like that. But he's still a young guy. He's been out with injuries, and he's not exactly starting at the moment with the form of the three in front of him of Cabana, Reed, and Wilson. So no, I don't think it will be a massive blow at all.
Okay. In terms of Chelsea and Liverpool's interest, Marcus, obviously very, very big clubs. So there are reports that Fabio Carvalho's head has been turned by the Real Madrid interest in particular. In terms of him and his personal development, what do you think is the next best step for him? Is it, say Fulham do get promoted, a full season in the Premier League with the Cottagers, or do you think a move to one of these elite clubs like a Liverpool, like a Real Madrid is the best next step for him?
Personally, I would hate to see him playing in Premier League 2 week in, week out, which I think would probably be the case if he moved to Chelsea or Liverpool. Real Madrid have, looking to recruit some younger players. Obviously, they've got quite an aging squad, so maybe he could be one of the up-and-coming players there. And I don't really begrudge him to be excited at the opportunity when a club that size come calling. I think no matter what stage of your career you're at, that's going to be a very tempting destination. But I do think he should be trying to get as regular game time as he can. Obviously, the financial speculation and offers that he's going to get might turn his head in terms of that. But I think from a purely development point of view, getting regular game time in senior football, which even now he's had hardly any of, will stand it in good stead. Still only 19, so I've got plenty of time. But yeah, he made that position his own at the start of the season at Fulham in the number 10 role, was a real key player. Sadly, the injury came at a really bad time. But I think development-wise, he does need regular action, which I don't think he'll be getting at these three clubs that we're speaking of. If he was to get action after signing for them, I believe it would be out on loan, which could be absolutely anywhere, to be honest. So, no, I think staying at Fulham or even a low move back to Fulham would probably be the most mutually beneficial deal if he does leave in January.
Yeah, obviously we are an EFL-based show, but I'd imagine there could be some Chelsea and Liverpool fans watching this on YouTube. But Marcus, just quickly kind of describe Fabio Carvalho's playing style to any fans, any Premier League fans that maybe haven't seen him play. What kind of player would you describe him as?
Well, he's very slight in his physique, which sort of aids his mobility. Also suggests that maybe he could be even more versatile moving forward, which is something that bigger clubs definitely like. A lot of player that can cover sort of one or two wide roles and a false nine or a number 10 role. He's very quick. He's very skillful. Dribbling ability definitely stands out as well. His chance creation as well was really impressive at the start of the season. Not just a player that was looking to get these sort of highlight reel moments in a match, and he's very intelligent. Got some assists, combined really well with Alexander Mitrovic, which just speaks to the intelligence of the footballer that we're dealing with here. So it's still a small sample size, to be honest, but to look at it, I think it's his pace and his spatial awareness is massive as well. To play in the number 10 role, to find little pockets of space in between the defence and midfield is really difficult. The players have to be scanning constantly and movement at the right time just to pick up possession and not have someone tackling you as soon as you take your first touch. So the signs are very exciting. Very, very fluid player. I think he's someone that could sort of drift in and around different roles in a specific system. So maybe if he is under a more elite manager in the next year or two, we'll see that develop further. But no, he's definitely a really exciting player to monitor, depending on wherever he moves away in January.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's our first bit of transfer news. Chelsea and Liverpool keeping tabs on Fulham's Fabio Carvalho as his contract situation continues to look uncertain at Craven Cottage. I'd imagine he's a player we're going to be talking about a lot as we approach the January transfer window. Right, let's look at some next news next. Derby County are among 13 sides looking at Manchester United centre-back Phil Jones. Jones has been a real outcast at Old Trafford over the last year or so. He's last played for United back in January 2020. So he's a man well in need of first-team football. Has played for the under-23s a couple of times, but you do feel he needs to be playing men's football sooner rather than later. Adam, let's come to you first. Derby County are one of the named Championship sides. There are a couple of Premier League sides reportedly linked as well. But do you think Phil Jones, like I said, he simply needs football, doesn't he? And do you think a switch to the second tier could do him a world of good?
Oh, 100%. I think taking that kind of step down as well, he's not exactly going to be, he's still going to be on a big stage, but the Premier League is a stage like no other. So him taking the step down, to a club that's fighting for survival in the Championship, he's got a point to prove, but he also needs to regain his mojo and his sharpness at the same time. So I think for me, it would be a very good fit for him. I think in terms of Derby County, would it be a good fit for them? I think it depends. I think it depends on wages, and I think it will depend on a loan fee. If they dodge both of them and don't have to pay wages or a loan fee, then why not? I mean, you'd take them, wouldn't you, really? But then again, you've also got to consider possible restrictions as well. We know that Derby have gone into administration. They're in an embargo in the summer. So, if it's going to take up a squad space and they've only got a limited amount of squad space that they can fill, then, you'd have to be cautious on taking him as well. Because I think their first priority has to be a striker, to kind of support Baldock and Kazim Richards. I know their defence also needs, maybe a younger reinforcement. I know that Phil Jones is only 29, remarkably. So, yeah, he could be a good fit. I think it would be mutually beneficial, but it will depend on the finances and kind of the transfer restrictions. But yeah, I think for him it would be a good fit, and also he's kind of lining up alongside experienced centre halves in Curtis Davis and Phil Jagielka, which can only help to kind of calm him down as well as kind of the junior. I think him being kind of the senior man, I think would be too much considering how little he's played in the last couple of years. So yeah, I think it would be a great fit, and obviously Wayne Rooney already knows him from Manchester United as well. So I think that's another good thing. He'll know how to manage him kind of with injuries as well. I know that Hutchinson from Sheffield Wednesday, Sam Hutchinson, experienced kind of a similar thing. When Darren Moore came in, obviously the previous caretaker, they actually knew how to manage him. And I think Rooney will know how to manage Jones. So yeah, I think it'll be a fantastic fit for both. But as I said, it depends.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of experienced Premier League defenders come into Championship clubs and really flourish this term. Notably, Scott Dann at Reading's come in and look really solid at this level. And Gary Cahill, of course, has been a real rock at the heart of that Cherries defence in what's been a fantastic season for them. Do you think it would be a coup, Marcus, for a team to lure someone like Phil Jones? Or is it the fact that he hasn't played football since the start of 2020? He's perhaps a little bit of a different prospect nowadays than he once was.
Yeah, there are concerns for me over the level that he's actually playing at. Even his fitness, he's only played in Premier League 2 this season and only 3 times. Just 2 league games since May 2019. That's a large period of time where we haven't really been able to gauge how fit he is, how sharp he is, and what sort of level he'd be ready to adapt to. I think with the importance that is on every single Derby County match at the moment, the scrutiny, the stress of their position in the league table, I don't know if that suits a player who we're not sure what level they're going to be at, and he would probably need time to get back up to speed and even to any kind of level close to where he was at when he was last playing for Manchester United. So in that sense, from Phil Jones's perspective, I don't really think it's a very good fit. I don't think his record in the last few years suggests, sort of commands that he should be getting a lot of interest from Championship clubs. It's tough to judge. So, yeah, I'm not sure about Derby as the right club for Phil Jones at the moment. Obviously, you say how well Dan and Cahill have done, but I think both of them played quite a lot for Crystal Palace last season. Phil Jones hasn't done that. So take this one with a pinch of salt. I think it would be a risk if Phil Jones goes to a Championship club in January.
If you are watching this show and you are a fan of a Championship club, would you like to sign Phil Jones in the January transfer window. As we've already mentioned, there are 13 sides looking to try and sign him in the winter transfer window. So definitely one to keep tabs on. Right, let's look at another rumour next. Let's touch on Lewis O'Brien at Huddersfield Town. The links with Leeds United continue to linger. He did, of course, sign a new deal at Huddersfield until 2025 back in September, but the latest suggests that a £10 million release clause could see him leave the club in January. Leeds do continue to be linked as they look to strengthen their central midfield department. There are a number of financial issues that the club owner Phil Hodgkinson is going through at Huddersfield Town, which might accelerate Lewis O'Brien's departure from the John Smith Stadium. So definitely a situation to keep tabs on at the Yorkshire club. Marcus, let's come to you. It's been a great start to the season for Huddersfield Town and Carlos Corberán, and Lewis O'Brien's been a real key cog in that side for the Terriers. It would be a real blow, wouldn't it, for Huddersfield to lose him in January if someone like Leeds did come in?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be an enormous blow. I think the boost that it gave the whole fan base for him to sign a new contract. Obviously, they really struggled in the first 3-4 games of the season, and then O'Brien committing his future and getting back in the side really lifted the whole club, which has them pushing towards that top six, despite, as you mentioned, the financial concerns off the pitch. So it would be enormous. I think Jonathan Hogg playing in a central midfield too, alongside O'Brien. It remains to be seen if Hogg's really got the legs to be operating in a system like that without a partner that's going to do as much as Lewis O'Brien does. So in terms of just losing the individual, I think it would also have an impact on the performance level of some of the players that play around him. So it would really be devastating for Huddersfield. I do wonder if there was some kind of assurances when he signed the new contract that he wasn't just going to go a few months later. Although how release clauses work, I think they've got to allow him to talk to a club if he would like to, if they do trigger that set amount. So it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, in terms of the Terriers' playoff ambitions this season, which they've really overperformed in my eyes to even be talking about, it would be an enormous dent to that.
Yeah, absolutely. As I've already mentioned, it does seem that Leeds are the one club that are really hot on Lewis O'Brien's heels, and they were all summer. Adam, in terms of Lewis O'Brien being a Bielsa sort of player, we know the style of football that Bielsa deploys at Ellen Road, very high intensity, very tenacious, likes his players to play on the front foot. Do you think someone like Lewis O'Brien would be a good fit at Ellen Road?
Yeah, 100%. And not just because of the style of play, because even if he wasn't that kind of high intensity player, I think that he would still kind of eventually fit the system. I don't think he'll come in straight away if he does sign for Leeds as an automatic starter. I know they've got the likes of Phillips and Forshaw in there who are all really, been there and done that in the Premier League. So he wouldn't be an automatic starter. And I think he'd spend a little bit of time. I think it would benefit him as well, spending a little bit of time on the training ground with Bielsa, just kind of get up to speed with the Premier League, because I think that would be a massive benefit as well. Even though he's shown that he can take the step up, he's been at Yorkshire for the entirety really of his career, obviously starting off at Huddersfield and then going on loan to Bradford City. He's shown that he can make the step up before and that he can make the step up again. So I have full faith that he can. But I think, mainly he'll come in as a long-term kind of replacement and as a kind of a long-term starter. And I think that would be mutually beneficial really for everyone, both for Leeds and for him, because I think if you throw him in at the deep end straight away in the Premier League, I know that he's had two full seasons in the Championship, but Premier League's a different kettle of fish. So I think for me, easing him in would be ideal, and I think that's probably why January is the right time to sign him, as opposed to him being the finished product kind of now, because it's going to the Premier League, it's completely different. So it wouldn't surprise me if he went there in January. I think that would be the right time to sign him, and considering he's got the release clause, then why not go for it? I know that I don't think Leeds spent too much in the last January windows, but if he's there and he's available and you can speak to the player directly and bypass negotiations with the club, with Huddersfield, then why not go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of Leeds fans suggest that Lewis O'Brien could be the kind of long-term replacement for Adam Forshaw, who's been stricken with injuries over his career. And obviously, the transfer news surrounding Calvin Phillips doesn't seem to go away as well. Lots of clubs keen on him, so it does seem like a really, really good fit, this one, and one that we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on as January draws closer. Right, let's look at another rumour next. As I've already mentioned, if you're watching this show on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, we really do want to hear from you. Send in your comments. Who would you like your club to sign in the January transfer window? Let us know. Right, let's look at another story. Swansea City are eyeing MK Dons goalkeeper Andy Fisher. Ben Hamer is the current number one at the Swansea.com stadium. We saw Stephen Bender start the season in goal, but he was fairly quickly shifted out because he didn't seem to adapt to Russell Martin's style of play as quickly as Martin would have perhaps liked. Marcus, Fisher is a player that Martin knows very well. Obviously signed him from Blackburn when he was at MK Dons, played a large part of the season last season under Martin, and has only conceded 18 goals this term as well. So he's 23 as well. He's got time on his side. This looks like a deal that could potentially happen, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It makes a lot of sense to me, this. I think, obviously, Martin's already got Ethan Laird at right wing-back, who he had on loan last season at MK Dons. Not saying he's going to get the whole band back together, but certain younger players that were flourishing in that previous system, you would think, could probably come in and make a decent impact at Swansea this season. Ben Hamer has fared a lot better than Stephen Bender did at the start of the season, but whether, looking longer term, he does have that natural side of his game. Obviously, it's going to be harder to coach in him. Don't know his age off the top of my head. I imagine he's around 30. But Andy Fisher, as you mentioned, 23. It's even younger because he's a goalkeeper as well, and they can play on. The experience will be invaluable under Martin in League One last season. And it is a huge position when you look at the way that they play. Every goal kick goes to the centre-backs pretty much. So to have someone that you can trust behind you would be huge, and would smoothen out any of the issues that Swansea have had in this sort of first third of the season. So yeah, this one makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it's a deal that Swansea, if they were to prioritise him towards the top of their list in their January transfer wishes, I think they would probably be able to convince MK that to let him go quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, Marcus, the goalkeeper position is very important when you're playing this sort of possession-based passing style of football, because the goalkeeper receives the ball more than the most other clubs do if they're not playing that sort of style. So, Adam, do you think this should be a real priority for Swansea? Getting in a goalkeeper that knows the system, knows a sort of passing style that Martin employs. Is it important in your eyes?
Yeah, I think when you're playing Russell Martin's style of football, I think keeping the ball on the ground, and I think the goalkeeper as a player and passing and distribution is just as important really as kind of saving. So for me, I think it would be a really kind of ideal signing. I know that they've sold quite a few players in recent years, Swansea, so they'd have both the leeway in terms of funds kind of at their disposal and the leeway with FFP to kind of make this deal happen. I know that the goalkeeper Fisher only signed a new deal in January, and I think it was a long-term contract. So it might cost them quite a bit to bring him. But the fact that they have made quite a few high-profile sales should make this a reasonably easy deal to kind of conclude. Not exactly easy, but one they could definitely do. And yeah, as I said, it shouldn't be too expensive. And they have the resources to make it happen. I think Ben Hamer is now in his 30s. I remember him when he was young at Reading, but I think he's in his 30s now. And I think for me, it's kind of similar to O'Brien in the way with Fisher. I think the fact is, you've got Ben Hamer, who I think will be number one perhaps for the rest of the season and maybe next season. But then you've got Fisher, and as Marcus said, you're a goalkeeper, you can go on for longer. So I think for me, he'll play this season, Ben Hamer, and maybe next season, and then Fisher will come in as the natural number one. And I think that might be something that, seeing as he can see a first team, kind of pathway I think, Fisher would be keen on the move, and it wouldn't even be a surprise to me if he kind of tried to push for a move, seeing as he's played under Martin and kind of, I think probably been impressed by his style of play, considering how young of a manager he is.
Yeah, again, you'd imagine from Fisher's perspective as well, this must be quite an attractive proposition, playing for a big club like Swansea in the second tier, and also under a manager that very well in Russell Martin. So you'd imagine from Fisher's perspective, it's an attractive deal. Again, one to definitely keep your eyes on as we approach January. Right, let's look at another one next. Frank Zambo Anguissa is enjoying a really, really productive spell over in Italy with Napoli. He's getting rave reviews from the Napoli fans and the Italian journalists as well. Really, really impressed with the Fulham midfielders' time over in Serie A. Crystal Palace are reportedly interested in the player as we approach January. But we at Football League understand that Anguissa is very, very happy in Napoli in Italy, and is not keen on a return to the Premier League anytime soon. So again, that is definitely a situation to watch. His contract does expire in 2023 at Fulham. Marcus, let's come to you. First and foremost, it's been a really, really fruitful spell for Anguissa, hasn't it, over in Italy?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a player that deservedly so, and at 25, looking ahead to the rest of his career, has to be playing European football. That is just how good he is. Napoli in the Europa League this season, I feel like that's possibly where he doesn't want to go back to Fulham, because they're not going to have European football unless they go and win the FA Cup or something this season. So he's class. He's one of the best players that we're probably going to be talking about in the transfer zone, just because of his attachment to Fulham. So yeah, I'm really excited about how he's going to get on and how he's going to progress, because even last season with Fulham getting relegated out of the Premier League, it was clear that he was a player that should have been staying at least that level. For me, obviously, he may want to stay in Italy, but it's up to Fulham at the end of the day. They've got 6-point cushion in the automatic promotion places at the moment. It will come to a decision of whether they think they should keep Anguissa and increase their chances of possibly staying up in the Premier League next season, with the chance that they would have to let him go for free in the summer, or do they want to cash in? I think with Crystal Palace, with it potentially being more of a direct rival for Fulham in the Premier League next season, I can't see that one as much of a goer. I think, as I said first off, that he'll be looking at a club, if not Napoli again, that will be playing in European competition, and his quality suggests that he deserves to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Reports suggest that Fulham want in the region of £20 million for Anguissa if they were to sanction a move away for the midfielder. Adam, do you think that's the kind of right ballpark figure for a player of his quality?
I do, yeah, but I think also that the contract situation comes into play. I think it's good that they managed to get him to sign a contract extension before he went out to Napoli. I think that was a really important move just financially, to give Fulham a bit of financial security. But for me, I think it comes down to kind of more than that. I think any deal, I know that he's worth more than 10 million, but any kind of, loan agreement above 10 million kind of for Anguissa with Napoli, I think they should take it. I think it was reported by The Athletic actually that before the Middlesbrough game, before the opening game of the season, that he'd requested to leave, and I think he might have already kind of burned his bridges there. So I think that would probably be, play a massive part. Obviously, they've got in Nathaniel Chalobah as well at Fulham, obviously permanently as well. Surprised they managed to get him permanently, but they have. So they've already got a decent amount of depth in the midfield as well. So I think they've already prepared for life kind of after Anguissa, and I think that's probably a good thing. I mean, why would you take him back in the summer with only 1 year? Well, yeah, with only 1 year left on his contract, because he's got a contract until 2023. If you're taking him back in 2022, why would you risk only having a year left on your contract and then trying to sell him for more? I don't think you're going to be able to kind of sell him for 20 million, even with 1 year on his contract. I know he's got quality, but the contract situation has to come into play. And selling him to Crystal Palace, as Marcus said, a direct Premier League rival. Patrick Vieira is already building a fantastic squad there, the likes of Zaha, Eze, Elise, Edouard, the list goes on as well. So to add Anguissa in there would only strengthen a Premier League rival if they do go up. And at the moment, it looks as though they will go up automatically, especially if Mitrovic stays in his current form. So I think for me, you've got to sell him to Napoli, and if the loan clause or the loan clause in the permanent clause in the loan agreement is above £10 million, I think for me you've got to cut your losses and kind of sell him just to make sure you don't risk kind of losing him for free in 2023. I think that would be the worst thing for them. And if they get up to the Premier League, they'll have a decent amount of money anyway. So a £10 million cash injection for a player that doesn't want to play at Fulham, I think that'll do for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think this is a situation that's going to rumble on for the next few months as we approach the winter window. So definitely keep across footballleagueworld.co.uk. We'll have all the latest on that one. Right, let's look at one more transfer rumour next. It's being reported that Nottingham Forest are bracing themselves for interest from Leeds United in particular in their starlet Brennan Johnson. Johnson has become a real ever-present figure in that red side this season. Really, really lively player down the flanks. Has scored goals this season and assisted many. A player with massive potential and is, of course, a Wales international as we speak. He was, of course, attracting interest over the summer. Brentford had 3 bids rejected for Johnson in the summer, but it sounds like clubs are weighing up a move for him as we approach January. Marcus, he's a real talent, isn't he? And do you feel he's deserving of this Premier League interest?
Absolutely. He's been an absolute shining light of Nottingham Forest season so far, even at the start under Chris Hughton. Not only that, but he's got a lot of competition for places in his position at Nottingham Forest. He's had to battle his way to the top and really assert his authority in his first season of Championship football, which is just hugely impressive. Only 20 years old. The sky's the limit in terms of what we've seen so far this season from Brennan Johnson. It's not a surprise at all to be seeing Premier League clubs interested in him. Maybe we'll go on to see even clubs of a higher caliber than the likes of Leeds and Brentford as we move towards January. So, I'm not surprised at all. It'll be very interesting to see how Nottingham Forest play this one.
He really is an integral part of that Forest side, isn't he? He is only 20 years old, and he's arguably one of the first names on the team sheet right now. That's some feat for a player of his age. Adam, just how impressed have you been with Brennan Johnson? Like Marcus said, this is his first full season in the Championship. He, of course, had a really prolific spell, productive spell with Lincoln last season in League One. But just how impressed have you been with Johnson this term?
I think the thing that's most impressed me is the adaptation from League One to the Championship. I know that the golfing class between the Premier League and the Championship is quite big, but the same can be said for the second tier and the third tier. Maybe less so this season with how competitive League One is, but there's still a golfing class and a difference in standard of the opposition that you're going to face. And the fact that he's 20, he's probably absolutely fearless. Doesn't really have a lot to lose. He's still young. He's still 20. So there's still plenty of time to go in his career. And I think the one moment that impressed me the most was right at the start of the season. I think his assist for I think it was Lyle Taylor away at Coventry City on the opening day. The pace that he showed, I mean, that was some introduction to the Championship. He's probably one of the fastest players that I've seen, based off that clip. So I've been super impressed with him, and I think he'll only improve further under a man of Steve Cooper's kind of management, who's not only managed at a domestic level, at youth level, but also managed in the England setup, with the England under 17s and that sort of thing as well, and also managed to get a tune out of Rhian Brewster at Swansea City. So I can only see him getting better, and I think we have to credit not just Johnson but also Steve Cooper as well for developing him. And as I said, I can't see him declining from here. So I think he'll be best served staying at Nottingham Forest for at least the full season, just to make that adaptation up, and then reassess his future in the summer. But I think his contract situation will depend on whether Nottingham Forest will decide to cash in or not.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's a player that most, if not all, Forest fans will want to see stay at the City Ground as January rumbles closer. Right, well, that concludes the first episode of the EFL Transfer Zone on FLW TV. Marcus, Adam, thanks very much for joining me this afternoon. Enjoyed that one. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to FLW TV on YouTube. We've got loads of shows coming up for you this week. Lots of club-specific shows, lots of debate shows, and lots of preview shows. So well worth getting subscribed to Football League World TV so you don't miss out on all the action. But once again, thanks Marcus and Adam for this afternoon, and we will see you next time.